closer than you think. Right down the road is the excitement of the Seminole Casino Immokalee. Close to where you love to be is exactly what you love to do. The Seminole Casino Immokalee, just minutes away.
Michael Spiegel was set to be sentenced today for last year's brutal murder of his ex-wife and her fiancé. He killed the couple back on Fort Myers Beach just days before their wedding.
A jury convicted Spiegel earlier this month. New at 6, we have live team coverage. NBC2 anchor Chad Oliver spoke with Sheriff Mike Scott this afternoon about the investigation into Spiegel's death. But we begin with Dave Elias. He talked to a friend of Spiegel's. And Dave, he told you he'd been planning to take his own life for some time, right?
Yeah, Peter, that's exactly the case. In fact, it came as a shock to many since it was here in downtown Fort Myers that Michael Spiegel was expected to learn his fate for the death of his ex-wife and her fiancé. But his close friend tells me that it was Spiegel who wanted control of that rather than a judge. Judge Frank Porter was supposed to sentence Michael Spiegel today for the murders of his ex-wife Marilyn and her fiancé Harry Carlip.
And it's very, very sad for the victims that they didn't get to have their closure today. That part bothers me.
While the victims' family members weren't there, we did talk with Carlip's ex-wife Freddie, who feels Spiegel escaped justice.
He seemed to be a very tortured man.
Lance Wengren says Spiegel, who was 72, knew that he would serve the rest of his life in prison.
I knew it was going to happen. Why not?
Wengren, who met Spiegel in jail, said that he had the whole thing planned months in advance.
Did he tell you how he was going to do it?
Several different ways. That was just possibly the way he chose. He was a very smart man. He knew exactly what was going on.
But his attorney, Robert Harris, was taken by surprise.
I was speechless. I didn't know what to say or do.
I asked if he felt justice was served.
What the victims, I believe, wanted was unfortunately, for my client to suffer. I think that's, in the end, that's what he did.
Spiegel's death, though, was the talk of our Facebook page. Linda Valdespino writes, he did the family of his victims a huge favor. Dorothy Black, like many, said, one less murderer that we'll have to feed and house with our taxes. And perhaps Mary Palfuse sums it up best saying, quote, he wouldn't face the consequences of his sick actions. A sad story all around. A story that only his friend Lance knew the ending to.
And he knew what was best.
Now, Spiegel did have a doctorate degree in physics. He was actually arrested the same day that he murdered his ex-wife and her fiancé. By the way, they were planning to be married just 2 days after he killed them. We're live in downtown Fort Myers tonight. Dave Elias, NBC2.
I would have just as soon had him go to court and let the court system sentence him. But again, he sentenced himself.
Sheriff Mike Scott told us today the investigation into Spiegel's death is already over. So how could something like this happen? NBC2's Chad Oliver spoke with the sheriff this afternoon. He continues our live team coverage.
Peter, good evening. I'm standing outside the Lee County Justice Center where today Michael Spiegel would have stood before a judge and his victims' families. The 72-year-old was facing a minimum of 25 years in prison. Today, Sheriff Mike Scott told me Michael Spiegel was a man committed to sentencing himself. Michael Spiegel didn't die during a daring escape. Lee County Sheriff says Spiegel chose to end his life Sunday morning.
While it's regrettable, I'm not aware of anything that could have been done to prevent it, short of having him restrained.
Spiegel was one of 25 inmates under the supervision of one correctional officer in a two-story living quarter similar to this. Fencing floor to ceiling on the second floor with stairs connecting the two levels.
At the corner of the stairwell, the top of the stairwell, and where the mesh ends, that's where he got on that and launched himself into the concrete head first.
Mike Scott says Spiegel was not on suicide watch. That determination is based on previous attempts and demeanor.
As far as his mental state, I suppose we could all, that takes us back to the original crime.
The crime was on a boat dock near Fort Myers Beach, housing his ex-wife, Marilyn Spiegel, and her fiancé, Harry Carlip. Spiegel's murder trial revealed in gruesome detail how he killed the couple 3 days before their wedding. Jurors didn't buy his attorney's insanity defense. The state argued it was an organized, goal-oriented plan. Sheriff Scott said Spiegel had a similar mindset when he ended his own life.
You know, he didn't jump out of a window. It's not like it was an escape risk. He thought about this and he carried it through.
Sheriff Mike Scott calls Spiegel's death a straightforward case. His major crimes unit has already finished up their investigation. The sheriff points out there's 1,600 inmates in Lee County. He calls this an isolated case of jumping and doesn't see the need for policy or structural changes within the jail. Live in Fort Myers, Chad Oliver, NBC2.
Thanks, Chad. We found out the state attorney's office automatically does its own investigation after an inmate dies. That normally happens after the sheriff's office concludes its investigation.